I have all the handles ready for the two projects that I'm working on here. The first two are for my 95 Buick Roadmaster that I'm turning into a coupe, and the rest of them are for the Neon that I'm working on. It's pretty important to spray them from both sides and to use a pretty fine mist. And I'm actually doing this the day before. These are now totally dry on the back. It's actually more important that it sticks to the back on these pieces than the front. There are no undercuts at all, so even if it came loose, it would still be tight against the piece. After spraying the piece in the vinyl, I'm going to let it dry for about a good 45 minutes or so, so that it doesn't lift off when I'm trying to reposition the vinyl as I'm working. I'm warming the piece after the glue is dry. Never dry the glue with a heat gun, because what happens is you'll sear off the outside. It'll be dry on the outside, but it'll be all wet underneath and lift right off if you have to reposition. Start in the middle and working my way out. You can see sometimes I'll allow extra vinyl. That's basically so I can work it down into the corners. And I never really heat the vinyl too much until I'm actually ready to stick it down for the final time. If I know I can do it in one shot, I'll heat up the vinyl, because once that glue is warm, it has a tendency to stick more permanently and you can't reposition it. Here you can see the extra flap on the ends of vinyl because of the way I put it on. That way I have extra vinyl to squeeze down in those corners. You see how I'm pulling it over? And that's the same thing. That's to allow extra vinyl for where I need it. Now I'm going to freshen up the glue on the back, give it just a light coat. After it dries, I'm ready to start sticking it down. Trimming off all the excess first, because that just gets in the way. If it sticks where you don't want it to, it can be a real hassle. So I'm going to trim it all down to roughly where it needs to be, as far as that it doesn't overlap on the back. Now the tips on this, it's something you don't have the vinyl very often. This kind of shape, they require a little bit of a different technique. I'm working up to the tip, and I'm sticking it like maybe a ½ inch from the tip. I'm actually sticking it down, but the very tip of it, I'm just kind of making it into a little tube. There you can see at the end. And the reason is that actually needs to be cut away, so that I have an area where I can pull down the very tip to stick down. And then I'm going to cut a little V, that way I have a place to stick down that tip. Taking the razor blade, turning it the other way, and just cutting it out to a little point. I'm heating it up pretty good till the vinyl is just starting to melt a little bit. And you have to work fast because it does get hot on your fingers. And I'm pressing it down, and melts the vinyl together and makes a real good bond that it's not going to come loose on that tip. Again, there's the little tube I made at the end, and trimming off the excess vinyl up to that. And then turning the blade around and cutting the very tip of it off to a point. Cutting the relief cuts, and you can see I'm holding it up with my finger so I see where it needs to be, and I'm actually putting the razor blade about an 1/8 inch out from the piece when I cut, and then of course moving my finger out of the way when I actually make the cut. With a nice sharp blade, it will still go through even though there's nothing supporting it on the back. And working it down and holding the very tip of it up with my finger in my right hand there, you can see, and that's so that if it doesn't stick before the excess vinyl is wrapped around, because if you do that you'll just have like a a bump in your vinyl, a loose, like a bubble basically, and the vinyl won't be tight. And also you want to avoid pulling that vinyl too tight because it'll put stress on it and sort of make like stress tears in the vinyl that sometimes come around the front. And then the last step is to use CA. I'm going around the whole edge and trying to get it to really not on the vinyl, but more on the fabric. And doing with the razor blade is sort of brushing it onto the fabric, then onto the piece. And then misting it lightly with the activator just speeds up the drying. And you can be very careful when you're doing this technique, because if it comes around the front, basically there's nothing you can do about it except revinyl the piece. And then, like always, the last thing I do is heat the piece up so that to sort of activate that spray adhesive and make it stick better, and then rubbing the whole thing firmly with a towel with some type of vinyl protectant on it. And what that does is it allows you to add like a nice even pressure to every point of it, and it protects it so that if you're doing other things you don't get glue or fingerprints on it or whatever as you're working.